And so I had a coworker who was like, you should try boxing. I think you would really like it. And I was like, I don't know if I like really want to get hit in the face. And he was like, no, like you just go to learn how to box. You don't have to get hit in the face. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah.
And we got Lindsey Kelley up on the show. Lindsey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So to start off, did you watch the UFC fights pay-per-view last night?
I watched the prelims. I was in bed watching the prelims, and once the prelims were over, I turned them off, went to bed because I had training early this morning. But I did watch all the prelims.
Okay. What did you think about those?
I thought there was some good fights. Some of them were kind of boring. I think a lot of them went all 3 rounds. I thought there was an anaconda choke that was pretty sick. I thought, honestly, so there was a few fights that went to decision that I think that, like, I don't know, like the Aljo fight. I feel like Aljo had that, honestly, personally.
That was a good fight. That was a good fight.
I mean, listen.
Very grappling heavy, but it was a lot of scrambles.
Yeah, no, exactly. It was, like, very high-level wrestling. There was great scrambles, but Aljo was just very, like, one-dimensional when it comes to, like, his fights and everything. Like, I pretty much know what to expect when I'm watching him fight. But I think that he took it over, I forget the other guy's name, but, like, I just pretty much knew it was a grappling match. Like, DC kept saying that. DC was like, it's a grappling match. That's pretty much all it is. It wasn't really, like, a fight. So I would have enjoyed it more if there was more of like punching and like striking and stuff like that. I don't know, maybe that's just my personal bias, but no, there was some good fights. I just have a hard time sometimes like staying focused on the fight when there's the wrestle. Like it was entertaining, it was high level, but at the same time I'm just like, I'd rather watch people like strike. I like watching like the high level striking and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. But anyway, so did you watch any of the main event or co-main?
No, I've seen clips from them. I saw Bryce Mitchell winning, which was savage. And then I saw the what's his name? Askara. I saw him get choked out. The main event.
Yes. Oh yeah, Kai Asakura.
Yeah, Asakura. Yeah, him. I saw him get choked out. Which I mean, I was pretty excited because I thought it was cool that they were bringing him in. I did think I thought it was a little weird to, like, bring somebody in as their debut to, like, give them a title shot as their debut in the UFC. Like, I get that he's, like, the big dog, and I forget what promotion he's coming from. I get that he was, like, the big dog in that promotion, and he's got a ton of followers or whatever it is, but, like, to give him a title shot, like, right off the rip, like, what about the top 10 guys in that weight division? Like they're not getting their shot, and he got it. So, like, I don't know. It just seems weird to me to bring somebody in who doesn't even really that was his debut in the UFC, and he didn't really have to work for that title shot at all. Like, I don't know. It was just kind of odd to me.
Yeah, the flyweight division's kind of low.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So you got a fight coming up in February next year, February 8th, Portland, Maine, against Kat Jenkins for the 145 pound title. Yep. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that fight?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I can't wait. So I haven't fought since April of last year. So we've been trying. It's not for lack of trying. We've been trying to find people, but nobody's really been like biting on anything. So it's been kind of a long year, and I definitely miss it. But I think also like having that rest period almost where I was like I wanted to fight, but also coming off of like the last camp and like I graduated college and all of that stuff. It took a lot out of me. And so in like the month afterwards, I was just like really like decompressing and coming down from like a really big like high. Yeah. So it took a while. I was kind of in and out for a little bit, but I'm now kind of feeling everything like reset again. So I feel really great. And I'm super ready for it. I love that it's in Portland. I didn't think I was going to get to fight in Portland again. Yeah. I thought I was literally going to be either in Indiana or like Massachusetts for like my next fight or until I turn pro or whatever. So I'm really stoked I get to fight in Portland again, and I'm also really excited that the fights themselves are at the Expo and not in Aura.
Me too. That'll be much better venue.
It's gonna be so much better, not only for like the fighters because we get to have an actual like cage, like a real size cage, but also for the viewers. Like there's gonna be so many. It's gonna be so much easier to get seats and to see everything, and I think it's gonna be so much better. So I'm so excited. I can't wait to get back in the cage. Like I've really been itching for it. So
So your last fight was in April, and that was for the Art of Scrap, right? Yeah, and that was the title fight, correct?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it
Yes,
was
I
the
did.
145
I
title.
watched that. That was a dog fight.
Yeah,
That was a
yeah,
dog fight. That was
yeah.
really good. I was really
Honestly,
impressed.
it was probably one of my favorite fights that I've had thus far because, like,
Yeah.
I feel like Balana was one of like the first girls that I fought that was really like well rounded, who was like an MMA fighter and like she knew how to like do striking and she knew how to do ground game. She knew how to do cage stuff. Like she like was very well rounded in that aspect, and like she also wasn't afraid to stand and strike with me, which was dope. And like, I mean, I got to give credit to her. She didn't give up. She could have called it quits like when I knocked her down in the second round, but she did everything she was supposed to with like inside bicep and protecting herself. And I'm still kicking myself where I was like, oh, I should have finished it in the second round. I should have finished it, but I mean, she just didn't give up. So I respect the hell out of that, and she took everything right on the chin and kept going. So she's a great opponent, and I can't wait to see where she goes. But it was definitely one of the funnest fights that I had.
Was that your first time going all 5 rounds?
Actually, in Indiana, they don't do 5 rounds for title fights as amateurs. They only do 3.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. So obviously in NEF this will be 5 rounds.
Yep.
Are you going to be ready? Do you feel like you're ready for those 5 if it needs to go past the third?
Absolutely, yeah. I think one thing that our team really focuses on is like conditioning and like making sure that we're gonna last. And Nate always says, there's very few things you can really control in a fight, but conditioning is one of them, and like the build up is one of them. So like I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I'm ready for a 5-round fight if that's what it comes down to. And I think my mentality going into I've grown so much as a fighter in the last 3 years because I've been fighting for 3 now since November. So I've been fighting for 3 now, and I think I've grown so much as a fighter, not only as a fighter but as a person as well. So like my mentality around everything, I figured out like a routine that works for me. I figured out like how to train like in a way that's going to be efficient and that I'm going to like get the most out of it. And so I know how my body works. I know what's working for me and what doesn't. So I've learned a lot. I've taken all that knowledge to the whiteboard essentially and worked through things. And I'm so excited. I would be fine with it going all 5 rounds. I'm cool with it. I'm just excited to, like I said, I'm excited to get back in there. And she doesn't seem like she's scared to throw, which is cool. So I'm really excited to see like if like the fight ends up on the ground or if it ends up striking or on the cage or wherever it goes. Like I'm very curious to see like where it ends up and where she feels most comfortable, because I think I've seen 2 of her fights. For the most part, because I was there for her last one, and she can go all 5, or she can go 3 rounds. So I'll be curious to see if she's ready and prepared to go all 5. But either way, I'm gonna come in as prepared as possible and give it all and leave my heart out there. So.
Do you think you're more of a striker or a grappler, or do you like to try and mix everything up?
I mean, I think personally, I like striking the most. I think I feel really comfortable striking. But I mean, with the gym that I come out of, cage work, grappling, like the ground and pound, not even just grappling, but like the ground and pound, like that stuff is like a heavy focus at our gym. And so I think that that's probably like where I honestly, I don't feel uncomfortable anywhere. Like, and I think Nate does that on purpose, right? Like the way that we train and like the training sessions that we do so much like MMA training. Like there are times when we're like sparring and it's kickboxing, but for the most part, if the MMA team is working together, we're training MMA. So we're doing wrestling, but we're doing it in the sense of like, oh, like if we're throwing a punch, this is how we add the takedown. So it's always MMA based. So I'm very comfortable anywhere, whether it's on the cage, striking in the middle of the ring, like on the ground, anywhere. I don't feel uncomfortable, and that's because of the training that I do every single day and like the coaching and everything. Like it's all like the mindset, like the overall concept of MMA, Nate is really good at putting down. So it's all, like he says, it's all just links in the chain. And so I feel like I have a lot of things that are linked together, and as a fighter, I feel more cohesive, and like I'm like I said, I'm just putting more things together. So I feel pretty comfortable no matter where the fight goes.
Nice. So what does like a normal training, or I guess just regular day for you look like, I suppose, as an amateur MMA fighter getting ready for this fight in February?
Yeah, so I guess it depends. In the wintertime, things are a little bit different because in the summertime, I work 2 jobs, so serving jobs. Okay. And so I work like on the weekends I would work nights over at one of them. But for the most part right now, it's working in the morning and then training all night. Like I work at a diner. So I'll go in and I'll open at the diner at like 6:30 a.m. I'm up at like 5:15. Like Monday, for instance, tomorrow I wake up, I go to work, I work all day, and then I'll stop home to get something to eat. And then I go right to the gym I do wrestling at 4:30, and then we do sparring at 5:30. And then every once in a while, I've started doing privates. So I'll do a private sometimes at like 6:30, and then I'll come home and go to bed. So it really just depends on the day of the week. Because like Thursday, for instance, same thing. I work all day, 6:30 to 2:30, and then I head right to the gym, and I'll do a private, and then I'll coach, and then I'll train afterwards. So
nice.
They're pretty full. Weekends are nice because like I train in the morning, and then for the most part right now I just have the rest of the day off.
That's
so
good.
I can compress and relax. But most of my stuff is all like, if I'm not working, I'm at the gym. If I'm not at the gym, I'm working.
Yeah. So do you have any specific like strength and conditioning days where you're just lifting for like an hour or so rather than just doing like, you know, MMA, grappling submissions, transitions, whatever, boxing? Is there any just weight focused days?
Yeah, so I don't personally like lift a whole lot anymore. I used to lift more like years ago, but I put all my energy into training. But we have Wednesdays. We have a CrossFit program at our gym, and on Wednesdays it's the head CrossFit coach works with the fighters, and so all the fighters will come in on Wednesday nights and do that. So I really enjoy that because it's nice for us to be in an environment where like we're not beating the crap out of each other, right?
Yeah.
Where we're kind of just like the camaraderie of like we're doing these CrossFit workouts, and a lot of times there's like partner workouts or like Allison's done a great job like adjusting that night to like the fighters because we're not lifting super heavy weight, right? We're not we're not throwing up a bunch of weight, we're not snatching a bunch of weight, like we're doing it in the sense that that's going to be like most beneficial for us. So she builds our Wednesday nights around like essentially a 5-minute round and a 1-minute rest, or a 3-minute round and a 1-minute rest. So like I think that's made a huge difference in our conditioning because not only that, it's given me more to work with on my own. So if it's like a Sunday where I feel like I'm like, okay, like I have energy or I want to go do an extra cardio session, I can go to another gym and I can do a cardio session where like, oh, I did this on Wednesday, I can do this again and adjust it how I need to. So it's added like another thing to our arsenal that we can like use like in our free time too. So I've really started to enjoy that. So
yeah, nice. What got you into MMA and what made you want to take a first amateur MMA fight? Because you're young. You're 24, 25? Yeah,
24.
24.
I had a coworker back like years ago, like 6 years ago, who convinced me to try boxing because at this point I was a freshman in college. I was only weightlifting. I like didn't want to play sports in college because I was just sick of like the politics of everything, and I wanted to go to school just to go to school. And so I had a coworker who was like, "You should try boxing. I think you would really like it." And I was like, I don't know if I like really want to get hit in the face. And he was like, "No, like you just go to learn how to box. You don't have to get hit in the face." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "You know what? Why not? I'll try it." And the reality was like, I miss competing. I miss doing sports. I miss doing something, but I was so burnt out. Like I was good at softball. I was decent at soccer and basketball. I had college offers for softball. I didn't have the heart. I didn't want to do it. I loved like catching fly balls. I loved like playing the sport, but as far as the politics go, my heart just wasn't in it. And I was like, there was something missing essentially. And when I found boxing, I remember I was so scared and I was so nervous, and like I would show up like an hour early and sit in my car, and I'd have to like hype myself up to get in the gym and be like, "You can do this, like you got this, like it's just boxing, you're fine." And so I've come a long way since that, where it turned into like once a week, and then it was twice a week, and then the more I showed up, the more people were like, "Oh, if you like punching, you should try kicking." So then I started doing Muay Thai, and I just kind of became obsessed with it. And I realized at a certain point where I was like, because eventually I started doing jiu-jitsu as well. I realized at a certain point where I was like, oh, this is what was missing from high school. This is what was missing from softball. Like I love doing this and I love learning, but this is where there's like a fire inside of me that that can't be put out essentially. Like I love being at the gym. I love coaching people. I love helping people. When people ask me questions, it like genuinely makes my day to like see people have those like aha moments when something connects, when they're like, oh, I'm not throwing my cross quite right, or something feels wrong with my kick, and I'm like, try this instead. When I see the click, when they're like, oh, that makes so much sense, that brings me so much joy. And like, just being a part of the community, they've given me a family that like I never felt anywhere else. Like, I was always part of teams, right?
Yeah.
But it's just different. Like, the people that I train with, and like my jiu-jitsu buddies, and even like a lot of the CrossFit people have started crossing over into like the MMA training stuff, which is really cool to see. So like, it's just given me a family that like I couldn't find anywhere else, and it's made me a better person. And so just from the moment that I started like throwing punches and kicking, I was just like, I'm obsessed with this. Like, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. Whether I'm fighting or not, I'll be doing at least jiu-jitsu for the rest of my life.
Have you always been at Evolution?
Yep.
So that's where you started?
Like, yeah, raised as a fighter at Evolution. Okay. Like, that was where I started. I started Monday nights. It was beginner boxing with Mo Kanani when he was teaching that. Yeah. That's where I started. And then it just took off from there. I had never done, I didn't fight in school. I had never like done any sort of like taekwondo or karate as a kid. My mom wouldn't let me. So I was always in sports, but I was never doing anything related to fighting, or like I didn't even wrestle in high school. Like, I didn't do anything like related to fighting at all until I started at Evo.
Wow. All right.
I don't know where it came from. I don't know. Like, I don't understand. I was like, I always say, I'm like, I wish I would have gotten into this sooner. Like, I wish I would have done at least wrestling in high school or something like that. But no, everything started at Evo when I first started going in. I think it was 2019 that I started going.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So you also said you just recently graduated college, correct? Yeah. Yep. What'd you graduate with?
Communications.
Do you want to do anything with that, or you just kind of seeing what happens with MMA right now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have to be perfectly honest. My heart and soul is focused on MMA. Like, I'm like, especially since I started coaching, there's been more opportunities with that, and I just like, that's just where my heart is. I really, really, really enjoy it. I don't necessarily know what I want to do with it. It was more of like it was really dirt cheap for me to go to USM. I graduated with a 4-year degree, like, debt free, and it was like, it wasn't that simple. It was a very rocky road. It took me like 6 years to get there. But because of COVID and a bunch of other things, but like, my heart was never really in it. Like, my heart was always into like fighting and training. Yeah. So that's kind of where my focus is. I have a plan of like, kind of, I don't have a plan. I don't plan things out. I don't think like super far ahead in the future. I'm very much like go with the flow. And after probably April, I can't see anything really after April, because April is artist scrap. And so we already have plans to like go there as long as I'm healthy and not injured. Okay. But I can't really see anything beyond that. I want to travel more, but other than that, I'm pretty happy where I am at the moment. But again, anything can change in the next 3 to 9 months, you know what I mean? Yeah. I could end up getting hurt, or I could end up like moving or anything like that. But I'm super happy with Evolution, and I don't see myself fighting anywhere else. I'm very content there, and so
nice. So after let's say you win the title after February 9th, or February 8th, do you want to go pro next year, or do you want to have a couple more amateur fights and then see how it goes? Or are you like dead set on going pro as soon as you get this title?
So I'm really happy. I'm actually like super stoked. I'm getting another, like, I get to fight for another title, like as an amateur, because it's just experience, right? All your fights as an amateur, like no matter what your record is, like whether you're 50-50 or you're 80-20 or whatever it is, you are getting experience in the cage before you go pro. And so that's one of the reasons why everyone at Evo has so many amateur fights, is because like that's the time where you get the experience. If you want to take tough fights, you want to like figure out who you are in the cage when you lose. Because you don't want to figure that out as a pro when like, your record is like in stone, right? And if you lose a bunch of fights, that's fine, because when you turn pro, you're back to 0-0. So that's where you figure out who you are as a fighter, and like how you can like bite down on your mouth guard and get through things. And it's also where you figure out what you really need to work on. Like maybe you're a really great striker, but you really need to work on your grappling. Like every wrestler that you fought has like taken you down and held you down, right? Maybe that's where things need to be worked on, right? So I would love to get like 2 more amateur fights after this. at this point, I don't think it's going to happen. And so I've spoken with my coach, and we're pretty much set on the fact that, like, after this amateur fight, I'm most likely going to be going pro in April for Art of Scrap. But, nothing's guaranteed. Nothing's 100%. It's far away from now. But my goal is to essentially go pro. And if I can't get any more amateur fights, then we're probably just going to end up going pro.
Yeah. I mean, there's not many amateur women in Maine, really, because I see you guys in Team Evolution always going to Indiana and other places to get fights. It's kind of limited in Maine, but that's very, it's good that you guys are willing to travel to get experience in other places rather than just kind of staying at home and waiting for something to happen.
Right, exactly, yeah. And I mean, the people who, it's not bad if you want to stay at one promotion and just fight out of that promotion. It's not a bad thing, but their range, their reach is only so far, right? And, the way that we fight, we fight at Cage Titans, Combat Zone, NEF, and Art of Scrap, so we go around, and it's really cool going out to Indiana because, again, the promoter out there, Mike and Chris, they have such a farther reach. They get people from Brazil, they get people from California, they get people from, all over Vegas. They have, the last girl I fought was from Canada. I knew nothing about her. She's some random Canadian chick that we ended up fighting for. So, their pull is, they're literally located in the middle of the United States in a way, but again, they have so much more pull from all around. So just fighting in New England, you're only going to fight so many times because there's only so many people who are willing to fight you. So it gives us the opportunity not only to travel and fight, because that's a whole experience on its own, but to also see different people, see different styles, see different looks outside of New England.
Yeah, no, I really respect Team Evolution and all you fighters. I can see, especially as amateurs, you guys just fight all the time. And that's, like you said earlier, that's, as an amateur, it's all about experience until you go pro. Amateurs, they should just fight, just because that's also where you're going to find out if you actually want to turn pro or not.
Exactly.
Just keep fighting, because you're not going to be take 4 amateur MMA fights, go 4-0 and be oh, let's go pro. And then you actually fight someone who's training all day, and then you're wow, this is what it actually is. I don't want to do this anymore.
100%, you're right. If you're out there and you're 4-0, 6-0, if you've never really been tested and you've never really been in a dogfight where you're back and forth and this person isn't giving up and what am I going to do? How am I going to get this win? If you're never really tested in that sense, then you're not going to know how you're going to react to it as a pro. And you want to make sure you want to find all those little weaknesses. You want to find all those Achilles heels, while you're an amateur, while the record doesn't really matter. And a lot of people do get caught up on the wins and losses. And I can't tell you how many times people have come to, when they find out I'm a MMA fighter, they'll be oh, what's your record? What's your record? And I'll say it and they're oh, okay. But they're so focused on the wins and the losses. That, they don't understand who you won or who you lost to, or what the fight was actually like. Was it a dog fight, or did you just walk through the person? So many people get so focused on the W and the L and they forget everything else, but the sport itself and fighting is so much more than just that. And I want to be tested. I want to have hard fights. I don't want easy fights. I want to fight the best people, and that's the idea with Nate. With all of us, with all the people at Evo, we don't want to just fight shitbags or cans the whole time, because that doesn't do anything. Having that 2-0 record as a pro, as starting off, just starting at just fighting shitbags, it's fine, but when you're a pro, you're only going to go so far fighting shitbags, and you're going to run into somebody who's going to be a killer, who's going to be who's not going to quit, who's going to drag you down and treat it like a fucking dogfight, right? Yeah. So I'd rather deal with that shit as an amateur, so I know how I can handle it as a pro. So
yeah. Do you have any fighters that you look up to, either regionally or professionally, UFC, any promotion, anywhere that you just kind of look up to, that inspire you to kind of just keep going?
I would say, there's a lot of fighters that I think that I'm just awed by. Diego Lopez is one of them. I'm a really big Diego Lopez. He's just a fucking dog. I love watching him fight. The way that he moves and the way that he just digs his opponent down. It's just really entertaining to me to watch. So I really like him. Charles Oliveira is another one. he's one of my favorites. Like his backstory, I've watched like probably every documentary on him.
Yeah.
I love his backstory and like how he just hasn't given up and everything. And because he was like really sick as a young boy, like as a teenager. Like his doctors pretty much told him that he was never going to be able to play soccer again, that he wouldn't be able to work out again, and all this stuff. And he ended up finding jiu-jitsu and like healing all of these like chronic illnesses that he has, and then fighting completely changed his life. And like there was like there was a point, I don't know if it was a heart condition or something, but the doctors literally told him, you're probably going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. And now look at him, you know what I mean? So to go through that, to live in the area that he was living in, to be as sick as he was, and to still come back from that, and to be told by doctors, like he said, he told a story about how like after the doctor told him that, like 6 months later, or a year later, he came back with a gold medal from his first jiu-jitsu competition, and he put it down in front of the doctor and was like, basically like, yeah, like suck on that, which I respect the fuck out of. I love that shit. So he's one of them. And then the other one who has a really cool backstory is like Wei Li. She has such a cool backstory. I think they did like a UFC. I don't know if it was embedded or if like one of the backstory, like what is it, chronicles for Wei Li. And her backstory, again, coming from China, coming from like she was living in this really small room with like a bunch of family members, and the way that she like got a job at an MMA gym, and then she slowly started training and just the way that she trains and how relentless she is when she fights. That one is probably one of the ones that's most inspiring to me, like watching her fight, because she just does not stop. It's so impressive.
Other than that, thank you for coming on, Lindsey. It's been a great time, great talking to you. I can't wait to see you fight in February for NEF for that title. I'll go in the cage and I'll interview you after you win. So.
Oh, cool! Oh, that's awesome! Hell yeah! Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah.
So, anything else you want to say? Sponsors, shout outs, any last words? Something inspirational? Let it fly.
Something inspirational. Don't be a pussy. That's what my coach always said.
Okay.
But for sponsors, I do really want to shout out. So I have a really important trip coming up to Thailand, where I'm doing basically like a bunch of training in Thailand, and it probably wouldn't be possible without the sponsors that I have. So Pat's Pizza in Scarborough, that's why I'm wearing their sweatshirt. Tyler, he's a really big supporter of mine. He's friends with my family. Like he's a great guy. I've been going to that Pat's Pizza since I was a little kid, and he's helped me out like substantially with everything. And then True Pro Builders, they're another one. Jared and Marissa, they come in and they do my cardio kickboxing classes, and they've helped me out hugely with this trip to Thailand and everything. So huge shout out to them. They're awesome people, all of them. Jared and Marissa are the best. So huge shout out to them. Big thanks to them. And then also, my dad, R&L Properties, he's also sponsoring me as well, helping me out where he can. And then also the girl who braids my hair, Jess, Heads Up Braids on Instagram. She's also super dope. She's in and out of Maine, but when she's here, she's like the best braider in Portland. So if anybody needs their hair braided while she's around, hit me up and I'll get you her information. She's awesome.
Cool. And what about your Instagram?
My Instagram is moose.mma.K3, I think. Yeah, that. I never remember my Instagram name, but if you look up moose.mma, it'll pop up.
All right, cool.
Yeah.